The lens is an avascular organ, which is held in place between the aqueous and vitreous humours of the eye. A circular and asymmetrical structure, the lens is designed to provide light transport between these two areas. As an organ made up of mainly epithelial tissue, a basement membrane encapsulates it, making it isolated from the rest of the eye. This isolation, as well as having no blood vessels present, means that it has unique reactions to pathological infiltrations, such as being unable to develop tumours. The epithelium itself is made up of simple cuboidal cells, and towards the equator or centre of the lens, these cells become much thinner and far more cylindrical in shape. This presence of a lens epithelium is observed predominantly when trying to understand inhibitions, such as the lens deterioration, otherwise known as cataracts. A cataract is medically defined as an opacity within the transparent crystalline lens of the eye, which ultimately results in vision deterioration. Currently, cataracts remain the most frequent diagnosis of blindness across the modern world, with an estimated 37 million people suffering from it since 1990. Every year, over 1 to 2 million people go blind, with cataracts accounting for 40% of known cases. However, despite cataract surgery being the most common procedure in the modern world, over 90% of blind people live in the poorest sections of the developing world, where medical attention and prevention is scarce. Without adequate medical attention, there is potential for the number of blind people to rise to 75 million by 2020. Cataracts predominantly arise due to the aging of the crystalline lens, which is why it is more common amongst older generations. The lens of the eye is one of the only structures of the human body that maintains growth during life, and as new lens fibres are continuously placed onto the lens, the old ones are replaced. The lens transparency is maintained by multiple factors, which include chemical makeup and structural integrity. As one ages, there is a slow accumulation of yellow-brown pigments from inside the lens, which is a result of oxidative stress. This causes an imbalance between reactive oxygen species and the body's ability to repair the resulting damage, as a redox imbalance within the cells can damage all components, which includes proteins and DNA. Oxidative stress is a major factor in the generation of cataracts, which ultimately alters the lens optical homogeneity and thus light transmission. This oxidative stress increases as one ages, and protein concentration is seen to be far higher. This high concentration of protein aggregates the necessary proteins and culminates in damage to the lens cell membrane fibers, which creates a cloud in a small area of the lens, ultimately resulting in clouded and sometimes blurred vision. Extrinsic or environmental factors that can stem from oxidative stress are typically a result of poor nutritional and lifestyle choices, such as smoking or a high-fat diet, and exposure to increased UV light. Although these risk factors are heavily linked with the physiology of cataracts, the exact physiology of these risk factors are not entirely known. Calcium has also been widely acknowledged to play an influential role in the formation of cataracts, but only recently has been able to be tested for investigation of its physiological mechanisms. Studies have shown that the lens possesses an array of G protein coupled receptors, or GPCRs, which are related to the release of intracellular calcium. If these proteins were to prolong the release of calcium, it would advocate proteases, who have the potential to break down important structural proteins, which can result in clouding of the lens, as it only takes a minimal interference of the lens cell and its development to have drastic consequences. Conversely, a complete halt of calcium production within lens cells completely cease lens growth. This often happens when one is exposed for long periods of time to thapsogardin, an inhibitor of the endoplasmic reticulum. This displays the ability for lens growth to be inhibited, which can lead to complications such as the posterior capsular opacification, or PCO, if cataract surgery was to be pursued. PCO is a cloudy layer of scar tissue that can potentially form behind one's lens implant post-surgery, which causes blurry or hazy vision in approximately 20% of cataract surgery patients. Ultimately, an imbalance in calcium receptors can have a major effect on the makeup of lens cells, which can result in detrimental effects to the lens. Until recently, most people suffering from cataracts have had to undergo invasive surgery, which are limited to replace the clouded lens with an artificial one, known as an intraocular lens, or IOL. When removed from the eye, the lens capsule is maintained to the best degree possible in order to maintain integrity of vision. However, invasive surgery has many potential complications. In an attempt to combat these complications, the University of California, San Francisco have developed a non-surgical treatment that relies purely on eye drops. According to the Fred Hollows Foundation, an estimated 17 million people are currently suffering with cataracts, with over 90% of these cases within developing countries. The new treatment, although in very early stages of development, is based on a naturally occurring steroid known as lanosterol. A case study showed that those that did not produce lanosterol were far more prevalent in developing cataracts, and thus came to the proposal that the naturally occurring steroid might halt the damaging crystalline proteins known as amyloids from bunching together, and thus prevent the development of cataracts as a whole. Although this development has made astounding progress, the next stop will be to start human trials, as well as determining why these proteins have had a certain reaction to the lanosterol used. This development is extremely important to the development of cataract treatment, as it offers a non-invasive alternative, as well as being easily transportable to developing areas, where financial and physical ability to have cataract surgery is extremely scarce. Ultimately, lens deterioration is a problem which is increasingly prevalent in today's society due to advancements in medical detection as well as treatments available. Although treatments are available to completely cure cataracts, they are invasive and often unreliable due to multiple complications post-surgery. To combat this problem, developments and research should be invested into non-invasive and more readily accessible treatments in order to help all of humanity across the globe.